Hello everyone, welcome back. So to start working on this, we need to create a new project so we can start dealing with our prefabs. So first of all, we have to set the project's name here after you click on New. We're going to name this Unity Prefabs. The location of the project is going to be a projects folder under my home folder, and I'm going to leave the rendering mode as 3D, and after that select Create Project. After you click on this, just wait a little bit for Unity to open. Okay, so since you're on this lesson, we assume that you already know a little bit about the Unity editor. If you don't, there are other tutorials that we made available so you can understand more about the Unity editor and things like scripting, for example. So to make this work, we're going to make a very simple scene in here. Okay, we want to make a simple floor. We're going to make a simple wall, and the interaction that we want to do is to spawn a bullet, okay, and make that bullet to move towards the wall. So first of all, we need to create two 3D primitives. Okay, we're going to our hierarchy window, we right click, select 3D object, and then cube. So we have one cube game object in our scene. Okay, and now we have to adjust a few things. First of all, let's change its position from the one that it is right now here to 0, 0, 0. So it's in the center of the scene. And since this is going to work as a floor, we need to make it look flat. Okay, we need to change the dimensions of this cube in the 3 axis, in the 3 degrees that you can change. So we're going to change it in the horizontal axis, vertical axis, and depth axis. So in the horizontal axis, which is the value x, we're going to use 6. For y, we're going to use something very small, so that can be 0.01. And for z, we should use 20. Okay, this should work good enough. And if you take a look, we not only have this cube that was added in the game, but we also have a camera and a directional light. They were added by default as we made a new project. And if you select the game window, you now see that the camera is at the limits of this floor. Okay, so we're going to look at it like this. And let's also take this moment to select our main camera and move it to a higher position, like 2, for example, or better yet, 1.65, some average human height. Okay, let's also change the name of this floor. Okay, so we have it saying cube right now. We're going to select this text, name this floor, and hit enter, so this is saved. And we also want to change the color of this floor. Okay, right now it's just plain white, and this happens because this primitive that we added comes with the default material in Unity, so we have to create one of our own. So you go to our project window, we right click, select create, and then material, and this is going to be named floor material. After that, we want to change the color of this material, so we click on this white rectangle and let's select something like a dark brown, okay, like this one. And now that we have this, we just have to drag this material and drop in the floor in the scene window. Okay, so this is what we have. We have one simple floor. And now we want to make a wall, so we're going to do a process very similar to what we did right now. We're going to right click, select 3D object, then cube. Okay, we have another cube here in our scene. Let's change this position to 0, 0, 0. The scale on X is going to be, let me see, 6 2, okay, or a bit smaller, 4. And on Y, it can be something like 6. Okay, so it's going to look like this. If you look at the game window, we just have this simple floor here. Okay, and to change its color, let's make another material, which is going to be named wall material, and we choose another color. So maybe a light blue, like this one. So you drag and drop, and there we go. We have a floor and a wall. So what is the interaction that we want to do here? We want to make this camera to shoot a bullet towards the wall. Okay, so how do we do this? Again, in our hierarchy, we have 4 game objects. We have the main camera, directional light, the floor, and this wall. Okay, let me rename it to that. Okay, and what are prefabs for? They're extremely useful when you're making games, because prefabs are things that can be reused. Okay, it's like we have a game object, like the floor or the wall, for example, and we're going to save it in a file, in a special file stored somewhere in your assets folder, and that file can later be re-added to your game. Okay, this is very useful for things like particle effects, for coins, for enemies, things that are going to be replicated all the time. Okay, so it would be very difficult to list all the things that could be replicated, because lots of things in games are replicated. So for instance, if you have an infinite runner, you notice that there are some parts of a game in an infinite runner that repeat themselves. Okay, it's like we're talking about blocks. So these things, they keep replicating while you're playing the game, and the difficulty of the game is going to be difficult every time, every match that you go on. Okay, so that's pretty much the use for prefabs. And one of the simplest uses for prefabs is to make a simple bullet, and we want to shoot a bullet in a straight direction. Okay, so to do this, this is what we're going to do. We need to design the bullet first in our hierarchy window, okay, in the scene, without it being a prefab. So we're going to make a very simple element here. So in our hierarchy window, we're going to right click, we're going to choose 3D object and then sphere. Okay, so we have one sphere sitting down in front of the wall. Let's change its position to 0 on X, 1 on Y, and Z to -8. So it's going to be in front of the camera like this. And right now, this sphere is a bit too big, so let's change its size to 0.3 on all axes. So it's going to be small, okay, like this. We can even make it a bit higher, so in position 1.5, and Z -9. Okay, I'm just trying some numbers here to find a value that is going to be good. Okay, so we have this sphere right here. Let's rename it to bullet, and let's create a material to it. So create material, bullet material, and we're going to change its color to yellow, so it's very easy to see. Okay, a bit green. And now we get this material, we release in the bullet, and the bullet's now colored. Now we want this bullet to be propelled towards the wall, okay, whenever it's in the scene. And to do this, we need to activate physics, because this is what happens if you press the play button. Okay, the editor is a bit darker, then we have to wait a little bit, and the game window is now live. Okay, this is the actual game, and you see that nothing special is happening here. We just have one bullet that is standing still, and well, it's not being propelled forwards. And before making it propel forwards, we need to activate physics for this bullet, otherwise it won't move at all. Okay, and to do this in Unity, we have to specifically tell that this is going to respect physics. So we click on Add Component, and in this search box we're going to type rigid body and select rigid body. Okay, you're going to see that rigid body is a component that contains settings regarding physics, like mass, drag, angular drag, and if this is going to use gravity or not. Okay, and just by doing these changes, by adding this rigid body, if you press play, the bullet falls. Okay, so it seems a bit fast right now, but if we move the bullet a bit closer to the wall, you're going to see. Okay, it's just because it loads and it's a bit fast. So you see that the bullet is falling. Okay, so let's move it back to the position -9. Okay, now that we have this, we need to find a way to apply some force to this bullet so it's going to move forward. And to do this, we need to write a script for it. Okay, because since this is something very specific, it varies from the game you're playing, then this needs to be written by us. So we're going to the project window, we right click, select create, and then we choose C# script. This is simply going to be named bullet. Then hit enter, let's wait for the code to be compiled, and once it's finally compiled, we're able to access it. To open this script, we're just going to double click it. And after we do this, MonoDevelop is going to open. It's a coding software that already comes with Unity. It's completely free, it's open source, and it works just fine. Okay, and after we open, we have our bullet script here. So as you might have seen in other classes, we have the class definition for the bullet. Okay, so whatever we write here is going to change how this bullet is going to behave. And we have a list of methods here, like start and update. So what we want to do here is to make a logic to propel the bullet forwards. So to do this, we need to access the rigid body component. Okay, remember, if you are on the bullet and you run the bullet script, okay, by the way, let's attach this right now. So I'm going to grab the bullet script, drop here, and there you go, the bullet script is here, and we are in this scope. Okay, we are in the bullet script. We need to get access to the rigid body component, and once we are in the rigid body component, we're going to apply some force. So to do this, here in the start method, we're going to type get component. Then we need to specify the type between these two characters here. And the type of the component that we want is rigid body. Okay. Then we open and close parentheses, as this is a method call. And we're going to type dot add force. Okay, so we need to add the force to make the bullet to move in a certain direction. Now, the direction of this force, we can make things simple. Okay, we can just type here vector3 dot forward. Okay, this is the direction where the bullet is going to move to. But we need to kind of scale this vector, so we're going to make it move with a stronger force or with a smaller force. So to tune this, we can make a variable here that can be easily used by us, so we can tune this bullet. So we can type here public float shooting force, and we can start by setting this as 10f. Okay, and here where we typed vector3.forward, we're going to add multiplied by shooting force. Okay, and we can save this script. Once we go back to Unity and we wait for this code to be compiled, you're going to notice that there is now a shooting force field in the bullet. So you can change this to make the bullet to shoot with a stronger force or a smaller one. So right now, if we press the play button, the bullet kind of just falls, okay, to where it was. The force was too weak on this one. So if we try 200 this time and press the play button, you see that the bullet went a bit further on. Okay, now let's try 500. We keep trying values that are going to make sense to us, okay, until we find something that is going to be fine. So maybe 1500, okay, 1500. Okay, and this was strong enough to hit the wall. Okay, so, well, this is good. Okay, we can start moving on. But the thing is, when the game starts, we already have a bullet here. Okay, and this doesn't make sense because bullets only appear if you shoot. Okay, if you give some sort of input to the player for the bullet to be shot. So what we want to do is to transform this bullet into a prefab. We're going to make it into a unit that can be reusable. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to grab this bullet. Okay, we're going to drag it and drop in the project window. And if you notice now, we have a bullet element in our assets folder, and it's named bullet.prefab. So we successfully made a prefab for the bullet. We can even delete the bullet that we have in our hierarchy, in our scene, because the information is already saved in bullet.prefab. Okay, and now you might ask yourself, okay, we don't have a bullet, so how do we make it to be shot? Let's make a few adjustments. First of all, we have a main camera here. Let's treat it as the player. Okay, we're going to imagine that this camera here is the player itself. Okay, it's like we are seeing this game in virtual reality. Okay, it's like you're standing here and you're going to shoot a bullet. So what we want to do is we want to rename this camera as player, and we want to make a script for it. So we go to the project window in the assets folder, right click, create C# script, and we're going to type player. Okay, so we have the player script. After the compilation is complete, we're going to attach this script to the player. So we drag and drop, and now we can deal with the player. And now, instantiating in Unity is very, very simple. Okay, this is what we want to do. In the player class, we want to make a variable that is going to store a reference to the prefab that we want to instantiate. So we're going to type public game object bullet prefab. Okay, so we have a variable called bullet prefab. It's going to store a game object, and it's going to be public, so we can change this in the Unity editor, not in the script. And we have a semicolon to finish this statement. Once you save this and go to Unity, we should be good to go to reference the bullet prefab. Okay, so we select the player in the hierarchy. We now have a field called bullet prefab, and now we just select the bullet, either by clicking here in this little circle here and choosing the bullet from this list or none, or I prefer to do this, I just drag the bullet prefab and drop it here. Okay, so the bullet prefab now has a reference, which is great. And now, how do we instantiate this bullet? If you go to the start method and we just type instantiate and between parentheses bullet prefab, this should be enough. Instantiate is a method that every mono behavior, okay, so every script that you create is going to have access. And it receives this parameter here, which is the game object that is going to be cloned, that is going to be instantiated. Okay, so we instantiate the bullet prefab right in the start, and at this moment we should have more or less the same effect than what we had before. if you press play, the bullet is instantiated and it moves forward to the wall. However, we want to make this a bit smarter, so we want to make the player to only shoot the bullet if they click with the mouse button. Okay, so we can go to the update method this time, and we want to listen if the player is clicking. Okay, so this is what we're going to type. We're going to type if, let's open and close parentheses and open and close curly braces. So what are we doing here? We are in the update method, so this is going to be called every time. We're going to make checks every time. Here we make a conditional block, so we're going to ask a question, and if that question is true, we're going to do something. The question that we want to ask here is input.getMouseButtonDown with 0 as a parameter. So we access the input class of Unity, and we want to know if the mouse has just been pressed, and this is important. Okay, if you use getMouseButtonDown, this would return true every frame your mouse button is being held down. But if we use this one, get mouse button down, it's going to return true in the exact frame you press the mouse button, and then you have to release it and press it again. So this is going to happen again. And now we're going to cut this line here where we instantiate bullet prefab and put it here. So the bullets only appear now if we click with the mouse button. Okay. Now we save this. Go back to Unity. Now we're going to wait for this compilation to be complete, and now we press the play button. We are on this scene here. Apparently nothing is happening, but now every time we click, a new sphere is spawned. Okay, a new ball is spawned. So now you might see that all the bullets are going to the same place. Okay, they don't kind of never fall to the left or to the right because they're perfectly aligned. So in the next video, let's make them move to different positions, okay, to slightly different directions.